Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Trip Sitting Podcast. Man, I'm excited to bring you guys this next episode. Now, to give you some background here, this episode was recorded on March 20th. It's going to be released on May 4th. I'm currently editing this and making this introduction for it on May 2nd. So since I'm talking currently right now, it's been 6 or 7 weeks since I actually recorded this episode. And as I was going back through it, it literally felt like my past self was speaking directly to my present self, because every fucking thing that we talked about and that I said in this podcast and that my amazing guest, Paige Randall, also said was just about everything that it seems like I'm going through right now, with just uncertainty in my life and struggling and down moments. And I gave myself just the advice that I would have wanted to give myself had I not been living so much inside of my own fucking head right now to be able to actually realize it. So it's just kind of a mind fuck the way that things work out sometimes. And like I said, on this episode, this is actually the first episode where the premise was just exploring what it means to be human, which is the tagline for Trip Sitting and this entire podcast and my blog that I've never once actually really gone down. So we just have like a really cool discussion about what does the human experience mean? Like, why are we here? And it gets really fun and trippy, and we just had a great time while we were doing it. So I'm excited for everybody to listen. So without further ado, here is the podcast. But first, there's going to be a message from our sponsor. The sponsor of this episode is nobody at the moment. But if you are interested, or if you know somebody that might be interested in sponsoring the show to get in front of an audience that is spiritual and likes discussing psychedelics and some of the existential questions in life, please send me an email at tripsittingblog@gmail.com. And then to everybody else, sorry for faking you guys out there. If you could go ahead and also follow, share, like, subscribe to this podcast, and also give it a rating, just because that helps me get in front of more people. Now, for real this time, here is the podcast. So I was thinking, like, before we started recording, I was, because usually I like to have some sort of idea, like, what are we going to talk about? Stuff like that. Typically it's just kind of about life and we just wander and stuff. But like the whole concept behind this show, like my tagline is exploring what it means to be human. And I've not had a single episode where like that was actually my focus. So that's what I want to focus on, is like, what the fuck does it actually mean to be human? Like, why are we here? What is the point? Is there a point? All of these really fun existential questions that have no actual answer to them other than like what we feel.
I love it. Oh, that's great. That's the conversations I like to bring to the table in general, the ones that don't have a correct answer. Because I think when we are having conversations with people, our tendency is to have a goal to figure out an answer as a human being. And I think that's a part of the experience, but there's something so special and transformative about having a conversation that doesn't have to have an end game, because you never know where you're going to end up. So I try to bring those, like if I'm talking to my family or my friends or myself in my head, I always try to keep an open-ended question going, so I never settle on an answer. So if I am thinking of something in my head about, oh, why am I experiencing anxiety and I'm trying to figure out an answer, I always keep it going by being like, why? Explore that. Be more curious. What's going, and it's just never ending. Yeah.
Just like that, living in the state of just like constant curiosity, I think is something that I'm always just trying to like remind myself, is that like, I don't like everything I think I know, I'm like, that could all just be wrong at the end of the day. And like, I just need to always be prepared to like accept that reality, that what I think is true right now might not be, and just be curious about everything. Like, everybody definitely does not think the same way that I do. Does that make them wrong? No, it doesn't. It just makes them, they just think differently than me. So like, I don't have to accept what I think right now. Do you accept the fact that, it's always open-ended.
Yeah, and that's a good point, about that doesn't make them wrong. And I think the first step to getting there with viewing other people like that is realizing that you're not always right. That's something that I really had to look at and be honest with myself about, because I was someone, and it still pops up, these tendencies where I think, because of the some of the knowledge I've consumed, and some of the things that I explore, and because I'm open, and it starts to become an ego game if you're not careful. So it's that
Hmm.
reminder of, okay, yes, you might have found these different understandings that lead more peace in your life. That's great, but that doesn't mean they're right or they're the correct answer. That's just where you're at right now, and
Yeah.
you don't know. And it's just something you gotta, and that's what I really think the human experience is about, is that double-edged sword of experiencing what it's like to have an ego, something you can't get rid of ever, because then you wouldn't be here. So, and then also recognizing the truth that exists within everything, which is like the connectedness. It's just that balance, that never ending scale.
Yeah, I definitely go back and forth sometimes on like, is my ego the enemy? Is the ego my friend? And like, I mean, I think what I've definitely settled on is like, no, my ego needs to be my best friend because it's never going to leave. It's literally always going to be there. I'm always going to have that voice in my head. However, similar to my best friends, I don't always listen to them. Like, even when they tell me what to do, I'm like, thank you for the advice. However, I think I'm going to do something completely separate. And like, I can do the exact same thing with my ego. I don't have to always like listen to it and let it control what I think and what I do.
Yes, and because the way that I try to move with the ego is understanding what even is the ego, because I feel like we have so many different definitions for it. And the way that I try to think of it is, it's the thing that gives me the ability to experience Paige. That's really all it is. It's this illusion of being just Paige. And if I think I'm just Paige, then I'm going to get caught up in my narratives. I'm going to get caught up in my opinions of people. I'm going to get caught up in my judgments of myself and others. But it's that reminder that I'm not just Paige. It's just the illusion. So, in through what we were talking about earlier, the curiosity and the wonder of allowing yourself to kind of expand out past that, maybe observe Paige more, you can realize that everyone else is going through that too. They all have this illusion that we're experiencing of, I'm solely just me and how I view myself, this story that I tell myself. That and it can be a interesting battle, but I also think life is about experiencing the negative and the positive. I don't think it would be that interesting if we just had all the answers and we were walking through life like living Buddhas and Jesus. Maybe that is the end game at some point. I don't know, but I don't know. I think the contrast is what makes life interesting.
I'm in like total agreement with you there. Like, we're supposed to experience it all. Like, I guess when somebody like, what's the point of the human experience? Like, it's literally just to be here and just experience everything that life has to offer without trying to control it. Like, that to me is the key, is like, don't try to control the experiences that I'm supposed to have. Because in earlier in my life for sure, and still honestly, like up until really a year or two ago, um I obviously I want to have as many good experiences as possible. I'm like, okay, like these things make me happy, so just do these things over here that make me happy, and don't do any of the things that make me sad, because I don't want to experience sadness, because that sucks. But experiencing the sadness and like allowing myself to experience that, like that's where like the holistic human experience for me comes into play. Like, experiencing all of the pain, experiencing all of the love, all of the joy, all of the happiness, all of the depression, all of the like discomfort that comes along with like changing and growing and moving. Like, that's when I'm the most like happy. And when I say happy, I don't mean like giddy and happy and joyful all the time. I just mean like at peace, really.
Yeah, and I think if you didn't experience the sadness, you you wouldn't appreciate the good moments where you do get that job, or you do get to do that one thing you really love, or whatever it might be. You wouldn't know what that feels like to be like, yes, if you didn't experience the low of maybe not having that. So, and this brings up the point that I've been exploring of, we got to redefine what God is, because we assume God, even in the spiritual community where people understand it's not this guy in the sky, there's this aspect that how we view God in just a positive light. And for me, something that I've really had to explore within the past year is that I don't think God is just love and light. I think it's the totality of the experience of negative and positive that you can't escape one or the other.
Mhm.
I'm not saying you can't transform the process and shift it and change it. I think the only constant is change, but I don't think we should view God as this love and light, because it's going to lead to us creating expectations of what life should be like if we have the full understanding of what God is, and it's all good and everything's going to manifest into my life exactly how I want to. And you can get lost down this path. I know I have. That's what I'm speaking from experience. So I think it's really good to let that thought kind of you know assimilate into your mind.
I love that actually, because like I'm definitely, I certainly have been the person that's like, yeah, God is just like all we are is just like loving energy and like light, and like it's all this like greatness and stuff. But then like I guess we come into the world and we experience these traumas, and then that causes us to like shut down from all of this. But like the truth of the matter is that we are like that loving energy. And I like thinking about it in a different way, that like, wait, maybe that's not the case. Like maybe we can experience that, but like we don't always have to go back there. And just because we're not thinking about it in a loving energy, like that's not a negative thing. So
Yeah.
I like that thought.
Yeah, and it's tricky to like this is why I love this conversation, because we don't know. There's so many we're always trying to figure out the answer as human beings, like I was saying earlier, and it's so freeing, yet it can also be scary to admit that I don't know. I can explore different avenues, different ideas, different opinions, but none of them are the truth. I don't really know if there is one certain truth. That's another thing. But it's interesting. Like even when you think about how we define love, who says love just includes positive stuff? I don't know. And it's interesting to explore these things, because it really tests the limits of how uncomfortable are we willing to get, which is another aspect of being human. We have this tendency to want to stay comfortable, but at the same time, that can be the very thing that makes us unhappy. But
Yeah.
being uncomfortable can also be tough as well.
Yeah. I I heard this one thing like talking about sort of like why are humans here and like what is God, and bringing it all together. And they're basically it kind of said, and I'm definitely very much paraphrasing here, but like humans are put on earth for God to experience what consciousness is. So like through all of our collective consciousness, because we are created from God, that's like God's way of figuring out like what is consciousness. So like
There,
it's like
yeah.
it's this just weird paradoxical loop that's just never ending, to just collect all of these experiences at once to understand like what is consciousness.
Yeah, and yeah, I like this. It's getting a little trippy, and I want to go even deeper, because something that I find happens to me sometimes when I'm with a group of people is I explore exactly what you just said of how I do believe we are all God in these different separate expressions experiencing it. But I also, at the same time of that experience of separateness, I think it is just an illusion of total oneness. So we are all literally just God experiencing through separateness, but each just like what's the saying? If there's a 3D bookmark, a holographic bookmark, and you cut it up into tiny pieces, that tiny piece still reflects the entire whole. I've never tried it, but I've looked it up and it
Hmm.
says that. So we think that we're a part of God, and that makes up
Yeah.
God, but at the same time I think that part is also the whole. And that's something I've been having to explore as well. um but something just feels very true about that to me,
Yeah.
even though you can't fully grasp it unless you're in some crazy state, maybe throw some mushrooms in there or some deep meditation. I don't know, but I do think part of me is very intrigued to explore that.
Yeah. So going a little bit down this rabbit hole, I guess, when did you first like really start asking yourself these questions here and like kind of thinking in this more holistic way?
That's such a good question. I had someone ask me that recently. I'm like, I don't know. I have such a shit memory, to be honest. But I will
That
say, I
that just means you're
think,
living in the present.
yeah, right. That's what I tell myself. But I think I would say it kind of started when back in high school, I used to have like a lot of, or I convinced myself at least that I had a lot of health issues, right?
Mhm.
And I found exercise and it totally healed me, whether it was through placebo or just the love for it and the enthusiasm. And I I tapped into this feeling of just infiniteness, right? And I was not down this spiritual path at all, but there was something about it that made me more curious of, listen, you're not stuck wherever you are. You're not stuck, because in my lowest state, I felt so stuck, so trapped into the health issues I was experiencing, so trapped into the anxiety I was experiencing. I had all these issues, right? And I was able to transform that. And then I got to question, oh my God, I wonder what else I can do. And it made me more open to the idea that I'm not a specific identity, you know? And seriously, if anyone who knows me in my life, I have a twin as well. And sometimes she'll ask me, she'll be like, dude, you're a different person every week. And I'm like, I know, I
Isn't it
don't
beautiful?
know. Yeah, right. And I can see the aggravation, because it could be tough for people that's close with you, someone who has a tendency to totally change whatever it is they're about, which is beautiful because that means you are open to exploring new ideas of yourself and life around you. But at the same time, I do have to acknowledge, wow, that can be a lot for people that are very close to me in my life. Um, but yeah, I think it started there, and then I just kept going down the questioning path. And my dad always did tell me growing up to just question everything, question
Mhm.
people, question things around you, never assume you or anyone has the answer. And that kind of just, spiraled.
Yeah, it's interesting. My dad said the same thing. However, when I would question him, things would get very different. And so that was really confusing. And I think that just creates a lot of like I don't want to say problems, but like I guess just like traumas in my life where like I just felt like alone because like I'm trying to question these things, and then once I would then start questioning them, I'd be scolded for it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, you're saying one thing but doing something else, so maybe I shouldn't question things around you.
Yeah, question everything, but not me. No, I
Yeah.
totally I totally get that. I think there's also when you are a parent, there's this tough part of you that doesn't want to accept, maybe there's a point where your kid also starts surpassing some of the lessons that they have taught you. And I think that is a part of life. I'm sure our both of our dads had a point in their life where they started questioning their parents and they were like, "Whoa, chill out." But I think it's just a cycle, and I think it's a beautiful lesson for them as well to be like, oh, I have to let go of thinking, I'm right too. I
Yeah.
created this person. Let them fly, see what they can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, it's interesting just thinking back on like the ways that like you grow up and like the things that you hold on to and like a lot of things that you like subconsciously like hold on to without really realizing it. Like as far as like not wanting to be a specific identity and like an example that comes to mind for me. So like when I was like early on in high school, like I was like super late to hit puberty. I was like 5'2" and like super super small, but then I also started getting like really fat. So like I call this like little fat kid mentality, just because that's a really funny way of putting it. But like essentially once I started like working out and being like, okay, like I'm not gonna be like this little fat kid anymore. Like I'm like I'm gonna be healthy. I'm gonna do all these things. Once I then got away from that, and like once I started being healthy and like working out regularly, like definitely like my personality changed a lot. But what I didn't realize is that it was essentially like running away from that mentality that I had as like the little fat kid, which was like low self-esteem. I didn't have a ton of like close friends. Like I didn't really think I was like worthy of love, all these things. Changing from that made me run away from that identity. Whereas like now what I've realized is like that is also like very much still a part of me, like that low self-esteem part and like that thing, part of me that feels like I'm unworthy of love. It's okay that that's still part of me. Like I'm not running away from that. It's about like holistically integrating that into my entire being now.
Damn, that is such a good point, and it makes me think of how when we do go through something that is transformative and then we are able to, I guess, we think we escape one identity and we hop into the other, we also have the tendency to then think the new identity that we've created is also us. And then we accept that as the truth, even if it is this positive identity where I'm like, I am transformative. I'm not attached to things. You can also make that into something you're attached to. So even with, like myself, I had the identity of thinking I was stuck, I was sick, unhealthy. Then I had the identity of I'm a workout guru. I did a bodybuilding competition, created a course, developed all this stuff around it, realized that's not really who I am. Then I created a crystal business thinking this is who I am. I'm someone who shares about crystals, and I got attached to that. It let me down, had to drop that again. And here I am just realizing I have to keep letting go of what it is I think I am. And I think that's what you were speaking on as well, and realizing that all of those things make up you. And they're going to keep adding and growing, and you don't have to be attached to any of them. And I think when you're detached from them, that's when you can truly integrate them into you. I've had to explore what I felt detachment was. And I think it's just, I forget where there's this amazing quote about it, but I think it goes like, detachment isn't, pushing away from everything and detaching yourself from life. It's just realizing that nothing owns you. So you can really have a new perspective for all of the things that you do experience and you have experienced.
Mm-hmm. What made you go down that path of like really getting into like what is detachment?
I think it was through always feeling like I needed to find an identity that this is it, like I have had so many different things I've tried, which I'm so grateful for. I love it, but I've tried so many different things in my life, and thinking that I was going to find the one, the one thing. And a lot of times it wasn't even rooted in true passion and authenticity. So it did teach me a lot about myself. But yeah, I got to a point where I had to let go of all of the ideas that I have in myself, and I still continue doing that every
Mm-hmm.
day. It's a process, and I think that's also something about being a human being is realizing it is a process. You're never reaching an endpoint. Stop
Nope.
it. Stop it. I'm talking to myself because even this morning, you got to remind yourself. And it's that's one of the other things that I think makes you human is understanding that there's always more to learn. There's always more to grow on. There's always more to let go of. And that's okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's okay. And like, it's again, like once you realize that, you can have fun with that process. Like it doesn't have to be like a tough, grueling process of like, oh my God, like I got to go through this shit again. Like you can learn to just have a good time in it again. Like that doesn't mean it's not going to be hard, because some of the most difficult points in my life have been going through those transformations. But like, you look back on them, I think always with like, damn, like I just went through that, like that's awesome. And so like with that mindset, realizing, well, if I'm going to think that in the future that this was a cool experience, I got to find a way to enjoy it while it's happening. Like
Yeah.
there's no reason that I can't not enjoy it while it's actually going on. It's more just recognizing when I'm in those periods of like deep transformation.
Yeah, it really goes back to being okay with where you're at, even if it's difficult, even if it's uncomfortable, or if you're not okay with where you're at least accepting that, and then therefore being able to integrate in that's something for me, because I have had a tendency to be a big stressor. Big stressor. I used to think, look, of anything I could get stressed about, seriously. And then that would consume me. And actually, I was watching Star Wars yesterday. I love Star Wars.
I
And
love Star
I
Wars.
forget who it was. It was Obi-Wan's mentor. He said this, and I wrote it down because it was so good. He said, be mindful of the future, but not at the expense of the moment. And I was like, like I'm going to rewatch all of Star Wars today, probably. But it's just one of those things that hits you. It's okay to think about the future. It's okay to try to have a little bit of a plan, because I've been someone who really likes to be, I like to plan. I like to think about the future, and I've gotten lost in that. But now I'm like, no, it's okay to be curious and implement little ideas, but don't get attached to any of them. Be where you're
Hmm.
at. Go through each moment. That's where you're able to actually figure out where you're going, even though you don't actually know where that is. But if you're going to figure it out anywhere, it's going to have to be here. not looking out there. So what can you do now? And that's been a big lesson for me as well. Even got a new job this past few months that I never thought I would have. And it was this process of being overwhelmed in the beginning because it was just shooting myself into a completely different scenario, 180. And I had to take it moment by moment. Okay, what can I do right now? Is there anything I can do about it right now? No? Okay, then stop. Is there anything I can do about it right now? Yes? Okay, then do it. You
Yeah.
know? And it's this holding yourself accountable in a way too, to be responsible for your your state of being, you know?
Yeah, I absolutely get like super caught up in like thinking about the future, and very much still do, but obviously have to go back and remind myself, okay, live in the present. And one of the things that you just said that like I absolutely loved, and this was something that just kind of came to me as one of these like holy fuck moments that like I haven't been doing this, is like, even when you don't like where you're at, like I don't like where I'm at right now, just accepting the fact that I don't like where I'm at, rather than like having the mindset of like, okay, I don't like where I'm at, I need to go do something about it. Like, no, 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 sit, be present, and just be fine with the fact that you don't like where you're at. And then it's like, kind of like what we were talking about at the way beginning, like the next move, the answer, it just appears in front of you. Like it just shows up when I'm not trying to like think my way out of the situation. Like just again, like surrender and let go of what I think the right move is. And it's just going to show up to me. Like I'm just going to know exactly what the right move is if I allow myself to be that intensely present with everything that's going
That is so cool. I love those oh fuck moments. I'm sure I'll get a bunch
on.
of them during this conversation. But yeah, that's something I've realized is if I'm not accepting where I'm at, I'm not going to even be able to see any possible opportunities around me. And also, I have to keep in mind, I can't just accept where I'm at and then be like, okay, where is it? Like looking around, you got
You're
to
still because
fully
you're still like you're not present when you're doing that, like
yeah.
it, like, and that's like what I was doing, because like for the longest time, like during this move to Denver, I mean, definitely like a little stressed out, as I should be. And then like once I got here, like again, I don't have like a 9 to 5 job right now. Like I don't have a way that like money is coming in, which is fine, but like I realize that's not a sustainable way to live life. But so like if I'm thinking, constantly stressing about like, okay, I need to figure this out, need to figure this out, like I wasn't able to figure out like what do I actually want to do. Like there's a million ways out there to make money.
Yep.
I don't use my degree for the most part. College was really just a way for me to push off figuring out what it is that I want to do for 4.5 years. But I did say during the process of like going to college, I'm like, this is more networking than it is anything else. Like this is for me to meet people, to think differently, and like figure that out. And so if I look at it that way, I got my money's worth. If I look at it in the way of like, this degree is going to, jumpstart me into a career, like absolutely the fuck not.
Yeah, dude. Well, I'm so happy you brought that up because I'm sure a lot of people listening will be like, "Thank you," because so many people we feel pressured to feel like we have to have everything figured out. But I think it's in the moments where we have no fucking idea where we can actually start being creative again. Because there's nothing creative about knowing exactly where you're going, and that's like this whole trap of society. And even for me, someone who I am graduating college this semester, I'm about to get out there, and for a long time, and I'm gonna switch this in a way that you probably wouldn't expect. I was trying to figure out a way that I didn't have to get a regular job after college, and this is the kicker. I labeled regular jobs as bad. I was like, they are bad. I don't want one. Bad, bad, bad. And the issue became, okay, well, what if that might be the thing that gives me the passion, gives me the network, gives me the motivation and the ideas of something that I want to do in the future? What's so bad about making myself get out there? Because I also realized when I worked for myself a little bit, I had a small little business and I was a house cleaner, and that all blew up in the past like month, which was another thing, which is cool, and I got this new job, and you know, change is the only constant. What I'm trying to say is you don't know, you don't have to think that something is bad. I'm totally okay now with exploring a 9 to 5 job, a regular job, because if anything, if it doesn't work out, it's going to give me the motivation to go where I want to next. I'm not stuck anywhere. I can try out many different things. I can go through shitty jobs and then maybe I'll find a good job and then maybe I'll get I don't know. And that's
Yeah.
okay because through it all, I have myself. And as long as I don't accept that I'm stuck wherever I am, honestly, it'll be a really fun shit show. So, and it's that integrating that mindset that's really helped me of being like, so what if it blows up in your face? You know, what's better, knowing exactly where you're going for the rest of your life and probably being kind of miserable, or, getting out there and getting uncomfortable, maybe having stuff go wrong, maybe having stuff go good, having more unknown aspect to it, I think always brings a more playful aspect to life. But I also think that can be found in the 9 to 5 environment or not. It doesn't matter. There's not one way that's the best way.
Yeah, that's like very, very beautifully put. And just like, you're not stuck where you're at. And like, that's, I think, the biggest like mindset hurdle for me was like understanding when I was in my 9 to 5 jobs, which I was not enjoying, that like I don't have to do this. And like I very much labeled like 9 to 5 jobs as like, okay, this is bad. So like I came back from like what like the big shift in my mindset was like last year I went to Peru to do ayahuasca. And I came back from that and like everything was just like, holy shit, like my life has been a lie. Like I have not been in touch with myself for a very long time. This is a disaster. And so like understanding and just watching these little parts of my life just like fall down and like shed away, and realizing like, okay, don't like the 9 to 5 environment, but that doesn't mean that all 9 to 5 jobs are bad. And that doesn't also mean that like I can't go back to that environment and then accept it for just what it is, which is just a fucking job. Like we are not our jobs. We don't have to make that our identities, which I was doing. Like I didn't
Yeah.
realize, but like that's who I thought I was. Like I'm Cam. I am in software sales. This is like a part of me. Like, no, you can just do something else and like change. And like I also realized like if I get a job, like I also don't have to do a good job. Like nobody obviously, like, you want to if it's something you like, but like if you're in a job that you don't like,
You don't
nobody's
have to
telling you
take it
that
to
you have to
heart.
fucking perform and like
Yeah.
do really well for someone who doesn't give a shit about you.
Yeah, it's all on the table, what it is that you want to do with it. And I think the most powerful thing that we can do is realize that, I can do this however I want to. There might be an outcome that I don't expect that happens, but I am not stuck. I am here. And it's funny that you said software sales because that's what I've been looking at to mess around with, because I know it sounds stupid, but I am so curious to force myself to get out there and maybe get into a situation that I don't like. Who knows? Maybe it'll be this cool company and I'm like, wow, I love the culture. Maybe it'll be the opposite and I hate it and I try something else. But I've found that even in our little dream that we have in our mind of the perfect job we would have, there's always going to be something that you don't like. When I
Hmm.
created my small crystal business, and I still do like sound baths and I'll do some events for people and I'll go do random stuff. And what I found is I love that so much. But also the lesson is there's always stuff that I could find within that I don't like still too. So
Yeah.
is there ever this la la land that we're going to find that we have this perfect, amazing job? I don't think so. Now, that doesn't mean I'm telling you, go get a 9 to 5 because it's always going to be bad. I'm just saying, you know, you could have a job working for yourself that you hate, and you could have a 9 to 5 that you love. And it could be the opposite of both of those as well.
Hmm.
You just don't know. So it's I think it's good to remain open and explore and see where that lands you and just keep going, you know?
Yeah. The other thing that I also realized in just like exploring like this rabbit hole of, just jobs in general is like you can also do multiple things. Like for whatever reason, I also had the mindset like, well, I'm in software sales, like this is the only thing I can do. And like I convinced myself like I was too tired afterwards to do anything else. So I'm using all my energy here. But like that's just not the case at all. Like you can do a ton of different things that you want. Like as long as there's a kind of like a purpose behind it, like if you understand why you're doing what you're doing, you'll probably have a lot better of a time with it than if you're just like doing it because this is what you've been told to do, which is where I think most people, especially our age right now, end up is like we're very much told like go to college, get a degree, get a job. And like back to the college thing, the fact that like we're 18 years old and they're asking us to like decide what it is that we want to major in, that's insane. Like I haven't been allowed to think for myself for pretty much the last 18 years. And now you're asking me to just make this decision and
I
stick with it.
know. And that's
Are
the
you
tough thing
fucking kidding
about,
me?
yeah, seriously, that's the tough thing about, I think, society as a whole, which we all make up. So it's like, I can't be like, oh, you fuck you guys. I'm
Yeah.
a part of it in some way, you know? So I think that will be our downfall and is, and I think we are seeing a shift is we're trying to plan out everything. We want everyone to know exactly who they are. The only thing that you're ever going to exactly know is that you don't know who you are. That seriously, that's the only thing that you're actually going to know. Anything else is going to be in some way or another an illusion, I think. You know, like whatever story it is that we tell ourselves, that's not ever going to be like the full truth. And I really do believe that because I think we're so much more than we can even express into words.
Yeah.
So, you know, it can be comfortable to be like, I am a software sales guy. I am a college student. I am a business major. I am this. I am that. I'm that. That just makes you comfortable. And that's something I had to question a lot too is why are you labeling yourself as this? Because it feels good. It feels
Yeah.
better than not knowing, but that same thing ends up being a box for you that doesn't feel good.
Hmm. Honestly, what's also like I think tough for me too is like in this state of not knowing and being okay with not knowing. When you talk to other people, especially once you go through transformations, you know, like you're changing every 2 weeks or whatever, like it's uncomfortable to like have those conversations. Like it makes me in a way like feel like I should know or like I should be doing these because like it makes other people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And like I think I have a bigger problem making other people uncomfortable than I have making myself uncomfortable. But then I get into this loop of like, well, now I'm saying things that like aren't really like authentic to myself and like, you know, I'm stabbing myself in the back essentially.
Oh my God. This conversation really is about the human experience because we all think we're alone in thinking this way, but we all think this way, you know? And all we really ever want is for people to be authentic and for ourselves to be authentic. And the best way I can explain it to myself, at least when I do enter those conversations, because especially that I'm graduating this semester, everyone's like, what are you doing? What do you want to be? Who are you? You know, tell me your identity.
Yeah.
And I have been practicing. Sometimes I fail and I'm like, oh, I'm going to try this and this is who I am. Other times, which I've been getting better at, is I'll be like, you know, I don't know, but I know wherever I go, I'm going to freaking kill it and it's going to lead me to my next destination and I know I'm good at this. I know I'm good at that. You know, the things that I feel strong about, like speaking, communications, building relationships. I love that stuff. That's all I know. Let's see where that leads me.
Yeah.
And yes, does it make some people uncomfortable? Yes, but does it also spark interest within them that they could possibly do the same? I'd like to believe so. And sometimes you don't know when you're planting a seed. And I think getting uncomfortable and being in that state of being uncomfortable, especially with others, you give them and yourself a chance to again reach outside the confines of your mind that you've, you know, these belief systems that you have that you've labeled as good or bad, and it allows people to open up their minds. And I think that's what's going to allow people to see and be a part of the shift in society is allowing shit to get weird, allowing stuff to get uncomfortable, weird conversations, uncomfortable conversations, people disagreeing. That's okay. We've always labeled disagreements as a bad thing and people not understanding you. That's a big one for me. I got so upset when people wouldn't fully understand me. I didn't want anyone to label me as the bad friend, the bad person, the bad this. And now I'm like, you know what? Just like I have this huge story going on in my head, so do they. And
Yeah.
that is such a humbling experience, understanding that they have their own little world going on too. I can't control their narrative. And honestly, if I do, that's really manipulative.
It's fucked
So,
up.
yeah, so it holds myself accountable in those conversations. Like you were saying, how sometimes you notice words coming out of your mouth, they're literally not you. It's,
Hmm.
you know, people pleasing.
Yeah, it's
And
like what I think they want to hear, I just say it like without just subconsciously. Like, I mean, we have like these things called like mirror neurons, like literally in our brain that are designed to mimic other people. So like we intuitively can pick up on what other people think and like how other people react to things. And then in order to fit in, we can then literally change our behavior in order to fit in to be accepted. But like
yeah.
understanding that like that's a thing that we do.
Yeah. And this makes me think of, I don't know if you've ever heard of Joe Dispenza, but I'm a little fascinated by his work as well, where he teaches people how the understanding that you have to become greater than your environment. You know, in your environment around you, you're always going to feel like there's a certain way that you should act. There's a comfortable, safe way that you should be. And you have to be willing to gather all of your, because you can get so lost in your unconscious programs of how you usually act day to day. I wake up, I do this, I talk to people like this, I put on my mask, I do all these different things. And there's this part where if you are craving change, you have to be willing to understand that you can be greater than your environment. And I view it in this way of sending out a signal into your environment by being that uncomfortable version of yourself that is more true to you, or the environment is making you act in a certain way. So it's
Mhm.
either this or this, you know, and I'm like, shit, I don't want the environment to consume me.
Yeah.
Damn.
Something that like you just said that like that I just absolutely love, and like something that I say a lot too, is the fact that like when you start acting more authentically and like you are okay with being uncomfortable, like that gives other people permission to do the same. And we kind of talked about it like, well, this is kind of just the way that society is. Like, again, like go to college, do all that shit. But like, we are part of society. And so, like, I think existential, like, okay, well, how the fuck do we change society? Like, there's, the government and like, this is how it acts. And then like, it makes all these rules and it says like what we're supposed to learn and all that. But like, basically going from like a top down approach from like let's say the president of the United States to Congress and all of that shit, like that's just not going to work. Like
No.
realistically, it's like the bottom up approach, which is just us as individual human beings in society. If all of us collectively just understand this and like start making those shifts to just being more authentic, the system's just going to change naturally. Like we don't
Yes.
have to do anything to make the system change. The system just will change. Like that's just going to be a byproduct of being authentic.
And I think that's how systems have changed forever in the past, you know, whether they were viewed as not so good ones or good ones, you know, like even with you could say that with anything, you know, maybe how we've had a lot of anger and opinionated, you know, I feel like anger and opinions have infiltrated our society a lot in probably before I was born as well. And I think that spreads through the collective, through the individual as well. I think everything that you see in society started by the individual and has spread at large. So if you're going to change anything else, exactly like you said, it has to start with just you in your own little world, who you come across in your day. It could be as simple as if you're someone who wants to see less pollution and trash, if you see a wrapper on the ground, pick it up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you want people to smile and be more friendly, walk by someone and smile at them, even if they're like, you know, and they flip you off and they're mad. It doesn't matter. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It doesn't, because you don't know how that's going to affect them down the line. You don't, and maybe it won't, but maybe it will. You know,
Yeah.
and the only way we can ever, you have to accept too that you're not always going to see the end game of your actions. You might
Mm-hmm.
not see them, and that's something I think we get attached to as well. Is we think if we don't see what we're doing come to fruition, that it's not happening. And I don't agree with that. I think you just got to do it anyways, even if you don't know.
Hell yes. No, I fucking love that. And like, again, just doing things, but with being completely detached from the outcome of them, just because like this is something that you want to do. Like, just like smiling at somebody, like as you like open a fucking door for a stranger or some shit like that. Like, if you're doing that and expecting them to say thank you, like, no, no, no. Like, that's not the point. Like you're just doing it to be like they could be like fuck you, I could get the door myself, and you still just have to be okay with that. Be
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I just did a nice thing for somebody. And like but like there are some people that like genuinely like again don't want to be helped by anyone. Like they've gone through this whole narrative of their life where like they've been the ones doing their own things. And like once you start, I guess, kind of going down this like spiritual path, whatever the fuck you call it, like you have a lot of empathy for people that are mean and like that don't understand you, because like you understand that like the narrative that's going on in their head to like keep them in this state is like probably pretty exhausting.
Oh my God. Yeah. That is something that I always have to remind myself of, and has been the most powerful part of mine, I think, so many people's lives, is just not having expectations for anyone else to understand, even if you feel like you understand them, you know?
Hmm.
And also not forcing people to try to become empathetic. That's not how that would happen. It would be
Yeah.
through you not forcing anything, and also not having expectations of the time frame that they're going to become a better person, you know, like people in your life. You can't change anyone. And I know this is such a
Yeah.
cliche topic, but it is so, I've seen it firsthand, whether it's people maybe tried to change me, not even on purpose. A lot of the stuff is subconscious as fuck. But whether people
Yeah.
tried to change me or I was trying to change someone else, when in the end, all that that needs is just a conversation that might be a little uncomfortable. And
Hmm.
that's something I've had to learn and be willing to do as well. As I always wanted to make people feel good, and now I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, but if I'm making them feel good by manipulating them and saying stuff that's not truthful to me, that's not good. That's not, you know, maybe they're feeling better because I'm giving them a fake illusion of, yeah, I am this type of friend. Yeah, I do love you the same, even though there's no bad blood for anyone in my life that has left or come in. Like, I don't view relationships ending as, oh, I don't like them anymore. I
Hmm.
view it as, you know, my mom always says there's friends for a reason, friends for a season, and friends for life. And I stick through that method of understanding, all right, you know, some things aren't meant to be forever. And regardless of whatever our fallout was, or if there was no fallout and we just drifted apart, I love the moments that those people were in my life, and looking back I can have more understandings for them. And I think that's another thing as a human being that we have to be open to integrating, is just forgiveness if you're holding grudges, you know, because that's really hurting you. Whenever I've held a grudge, it's really hurting me a lot. And it's really important to, even if you can't fully forgive them, just start to be open to the idea that you don't need to hold on to that. And we're always exactly where we're supposed to be. So if someone left maybe not on the best terms, see what you can, dive deeper into it. Don't be scared to feel the uncomfortable feelings that that
Hmm.
relationship brought, and see what comes from it, you know?
Yeah. Like why is it, again, like just asking why? Like why is this making me feel like so bad? Like why do I feel like I dislike this person so much? Like what is it about that that makes me so uncomfortable? And like again, typically it's some trauma that we've experienced from our childhood that we're holding on to and just don't like realize that like we just haven't let go. And
Yeah.
like the idea that like patterns will continue to repeat themselves in your entire life until you deal with them. And like that's I guess one of the things that I think that kind of we're here to experience as a human is like there are certain things that like there are lessons that we're supposed to learn, and if we don't learn those lessons they're just going to keep showing up in probably like more and more painful ways as we continue to get older. But like understanding when those lessons are showing up, that like we're not supposed to run from them, or we're not supposed to like control never having to like feel this way. It's just about like understanding like this is why this person was put in my life, even if it ended in a complete shit show. Like
Yeah.
this is why they're here, and I just need to basically like deal with it and understand it and just get curious, like question it, understand why.
Yeah, be willing to
And then be
see.
grateful. Yeah. And then also too, like be grateful for the fact that like they were there to help you learn this lesson.
Yeah.
Like you can find a lesson in just about everything that happens in your life. Like I promise.
Oh my god, it's never endless. And I think that's a good point as well, is we derive meaning through, I think, our perception and our beliefs on life. So for me, when I think of lessons, I think the specific lessons that we're supposed to experience are always changing depending on who we are moment to moment, you know, and who we are, in a way of what beliefs am I attached to right now? Because whatever beliefs I'm attached to right now, I'm going to perceive other people through those beliefs, you know, and it's not until I'm willing to act different that I can overcome that lesson that I'm speaking of with whoever it happens to be that I am going through this issue with. You know, something for me, just to give context, was like, you know, we dove into the people pleasing aspect, but to get more specific, I used to always think that I had this belief that everything could be resolved without getting uncomfortable. without getting uncomfortable with people, not having those hard conversations, and nothing in my life changed. I kept having more situations come in that was like, get uncomfortable, have an uncomfortable conversation, be honest. And I remember there was this one guy that I was trying to help out while I was house cleaning, and he had a big move. He was super, I felt bad. He was in a really bad scenario. He didn't have any money to help, and this was like a bad time in my life where I didn't really have the time to be doing that. But because I wanted to help him, I told him I'd commit to it. And it ended up getting really bad in different ways that you would expect just with the guy and who he was. And I was forced to either, like I always had, just be like, all right, I'll just keep doing this. I'll just keep accepting what's going on and just falling victim to the situation, or I'm going to do something different. And I chose to do something different and have a really tough conversation with him. He was not happy at all. And that was very hard for me to do. But it ended up from that moment shifting my belief in that way that now I view all of my relationships that feel like that differently, and I act and move through them differently. So that's just an example of what I mean by you perceive the situations you are in through the belief systems. And I think the situations that are in gives you a big insight on what beliefs am I attaching to right now.
Yeah. That's like a mind fuck. Like I'm trying to like process all of that right now. It's like it's super trippy to just like think about. We're essentially thinking about thinking.
Yeah.
like,
Okay,
like
that's a mind
what?
fuck right now. That didn't hit me like that.
There's like I don't know if you watch like Alan Watts videos, but like just like there's like this one quote that I'm thinking of him where he's basically just like explaining like anxiety. Actually, this is from like a song that incorporates an Alan Watts quote, but it's basically like you're thinking about the future, and then like you're thinking about the thinker, and then it's essentially just causing you to just like not be able to just accept what is and like live in the present moment. I'd love to get the exact quote, but like that's all of this like tension and like all the struggles and like all the suffering like typically always derives from you just not being able to accept what is in the present moment, regardless of how uncomfortable or how much it sucks.
Yeah, or even accept that you could choose a different action. And that's something that's painful is accepting that you don't have to, but you have to understand that there's always another move you could take. Not saying there's one
Mhm.
right move to take, but that's something I had to really get real with myself about is I always tried to complain and convince people that I was trapped. Like I love to
Yeah,
complain. Oh my gosh, I love to have people feed into
the
my
victim
stories.
mentality.
Yes, and you know what? I'm glad I was there because it teaches me a lot. So that's why now anymore, if I see someone like that, I don't try to change them anymore. I just try to understand, oh my God, like I used to be there and it taught me so much. So I wish you
Yeah,
well. And if you
like
ever
I
come
get
to
it.
me, yeah, I get it. And it's still something that pops up that I have to, recenter myself about and make sure I'm keeping tabs on because it can pop in. I'm sure there's multiple times this week where I was like, oh, I have so much to do. I don't want to do it. Yeah, that is one way of looking at it. It is. But do I want that right now? Happen to be no.
Yeah,
So, no, I'm not going to choose that. What can I do? What can I do?
yeah. Something that's definitely come up when like I talk to other people about this that might not be like on the same spiritual journey, like more so just kind of like accepting things, is when I tell them like I'm just like right now, like what I'm doing through life is like I'm just letting go and just like surrendering to the universe and just like accepting whatever happens. And a lot of people I've noticed take that to mean that like you're basically just getting stomped on. Like everybody's just gonna like fucking take advantage of you and do all that. And like, no, like letting go is not about just like letting everyone just do whatever the fuck they want to you. It's just about like seeing things for as they are and then doing something about it. Like that's it. Like the cross between being and doing, like they're both they both need to be there. It's not just one or the other. Like it's very much a 50-50 split. But like just because I'm letting go and surrendering doesn't mean that like I'm gonna let this person like walk all over me. Like I'm still going to get up and fight and like understand too that like us as humans, like we are animals. We do have animal instincts and animalistic nature. And I think we try to like run away from that in a way. Like we try to think that like we're better than animals. We're like,
Yeah.
we still are, and we have to understand when those instincts need to kick in, or when we can be like, I don't know about that one. I think I'm going to do something else.
Oh my
But we get to
God.
choose.
We get to choose. Wow. That was spot on, my friend. I don't even know what else I could add to that because it's so true. Oh my gosh. Sorry, now I'm trying to conceptualize
No,
that.
don't apologize. I like having these pauses because sometimes in these conversations it definitely feels like we need to be talking the whole time,
Yeah.
but we don't.
But at the same time, you're trying to process all of these new ways of viewing things. And I think it's also, I guess it brings up the point then to, it's okay if you're not always transforming yourself and opening up to new ideas. Like, again, it goes back to that acceptance. And I've had people tell me that how they view acceptance is, okay, you're accepting where you're at and you're not going to go anywhere else. I view it the opposite. I view accepting as then allowing myself to expand my viewpoint, expand my perception, and see all of the different things that are happening around me, and not being attached to any of them because I'm okay with where I'm at and I know I can move forward through these different things. So I do agree with you. I think people have this idea that if you're surrendering, if you're accepting, and if you're flowing, you're just going to fuck up your life. And for me, it's like, no, it's dropping the narrative so that you can see things clearly and you're no longer trying to manipulate your surroundings. And I think this is something that's not talked about enough, is when you get trapped into this idea of manifestation, basically, in this way of, oh, I need this thing. I'm going to get it. I'm going to sit down every day and just believe wholeheartedly, with which at the end of the day, beliefs are also bullshit. I have beliefs and I know that they're bullshit. I really do. So it's that, like, manifestation to me is happening every second. Manifestation is showing me what it is I am believing in every single moment. And the only thing that I can control is how I view what's happening around me. I don't know where that's going to lead me, but it'll lead me to wherever I'm supposed to be at. And I think, I just wish, as someone who has really attached on to forcing outcomes and forcing things to happen because that's manifestation and that's what that means, I lost myself a lot along the way. And I hope that maybe people hearing this, it'll open them up to understanding that manifestation is always happening. Look around you. This is all manifest, and you can view the same thing in trillions of different ways. So explore your perception and see where that takes you. There's not a specific place you're going to be, because you might manifest to this certain outcome. I'm sure you can do it, but you're going to get there and there's always going to be something else,
Yeah.
if you're just attached to wanting the next thing, and instead of
Yeah.
flowing through life, surrendering, seeing what you can gain from each place and where you're at, and just going with the flow.
It's understanding that like manifestation isn't about when you're like sitting down and manifesting and thinking about the thing that you want. It's literally about in the way that you move through your life, like
Yeah.
wholeheartedly, like the holistic sense of what you do. Like that's how you manifest, especially, I think was overlooked a lot, especially in the way that you allow yourself to rest. Like you need to chill sometimes and fucking rest and
Are
get
you
your
calling me
mind
out,
off of the
Cam?
thing. No, I'm calling myself out because like that was the biggest thing for me too, is like not allowing myself to like rest and just chill and understand. Like I fucking get why the church is like, yeah, rest on Sundays, and like fucking in Judaism, rest on Saturdays and shit. Like I get it, but then somehow it became really, really strict about like this is how you have to rest. Like,
Oh my
okay,
god.
don't tell me how I'm supposed to rest. I need to rest in the way that I want to, but like you need to give yourself time to do that, or else like you're just going to be like shooting at this goal blindly, like never ever being able to like reach it, and then once you're there,
Yes.
like you're going to fall down this trap of never being okay with where you're at.
Or labeling
There's
rest as being
nowhere that we need to
lazy.
be.
I have
Mm-hmm.
always, I'm such a, like, go, 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 go. If I get home from somewhere, no, you got to clean your kitchen, which I will say that is one of my forms of rest and relaxation, is putting on a podcast and cleaning my space. But it's allowing yourself, if my rest does look like laying down and watching TV, that's okay. I
Yeah.
always try to think that there's a certain way that you're supposed to rest. If it's not cleaning my house, it's sitting like this in a perfect position, closing my eyes, and maybe it might look like that certain days, but it doesn't always have to look in a certain way. And I do think it's really important to take the time to not be planning, like as someone who makes content on TikTok, which you can get so lost in, by the
Oh my
way,
God.
I'll find myself being like, what, this isn't good, you know what? And then I always fall back to the point of, Paige, why did you start doing that in the first place? Because you had a random ass fucking thought and you wanted to put it out there. For number one, to encourage yourself to be okay with being yourself online. And number two, seeing if you can connect with people through that. Not trying to formulate a specific content strategy or any of that bullshit
Oh
that
my
leads
God.
to, seriously, because this is an ongoing thing that I get lost in within my
Yep.
mind, is me knowing and understanding that that's not what the fuck this is about. And then the other half of me feeling inadequate if I'm not getting as many likes or views, or something must be wrong then.
Once you,
No.
oh my, I can talk about this for so, like, once you get like, like certain, like once one TikTok or something like goes viral and you get a bunch of really good feedback, you're like, I find myself unconsciously then trying to make the same type of content, like sort of
Yep.
like go in that direction. And like, that's not why I started doing this. Like, I selfishly, and I will admit that it's okay to be selfish, I do this for me.
Yep.
I don't do this for an audience, and I love everybody who's listening to this. I want to make that abundantly clear, which I love each and every one of you. But at the end of the day, like, this isn't necessarily for you. This is for me. And if you happen to fuck with it, like, that's awesome. But
I
if you
think
don't,
that's what makes it
don't listen.
authentic. That's what makes it authentic, though, because when you're doing it for yourself, it's actually selfless in a way, because when you're doing it for other people, I swear to God, it's
It is.
manipulation. We need to start talking about this more because we don't want to admit it to ourselves. I had to rip that band-aid off. It hurt like a bitch, but now that I have of understanding, when I'm trying to make people view me in a certain way, or I'm trying to get a lot of likes, get a lot of shares, if it randomly happens, that's cool, but it's about just being yourself through everything, and not expecting anything in return, and that's what is the danger of social media. And I think it also is a good thing because it teaches you a lot of important lessons about not putting your self-worth in anything outside of you. It's here. If you feel good in here, you're not even going to be searching. So because that has been a problem that's been coming up, I've been realizing I clearly don't fully feel good in here about how other people view me. That's clearly something I need to work on. And honestly, I know I'm going against myself right now, but I should make a post about this because it's true. I think we all feel this way of where we're trying to live up to these expectations so people will view us in a certain way, so we will feel worthy and adequate. But that's
Yeah.
total bullshit. So bullshit.
Yeah. Something like that kind of just struck a chord with me there too. It's something that I've been working on like over the last like couple weeks or like a month, is like understanding too that even the people that already follow me right now and like agree with what I'm saying, like, I can say things to piss them off too. Like, I can't be afraid of saying things that I think are going to piss people off.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, like when you have actual ideas that are true in nature, like I think society has a very large problem with being able to just accept truth for what it is because they want
Yeah.
to judge it and think it
Yeah.
should be a certain way. But like when you say things that are unbelievably truthful, you're going to piss people off. There is literally no avoiding that whatsoever. Some people will agree with you for sure, but some people are going to get mad because it's going to trigger them in a way. Like when you get triggered, that is part of your unconscious programming. That's your identity
Mm-hmm.
basically being like attacked in that moment, and then you feeling the need to defend it. Like that's all getting triggered is basically just trying to like defend a part of your identity. And so
Yeah.
understanding that, like, when that happens, like when you feel yourself getting triggered, like that's an awesome thing. Like now you have an opportunity to understand that there's this part of your brain that thinks this way. And now you can come at it from just like an objective angle. Do I want to choose to continue to get triggered by this? Or do I just not want to give a shit anymore?
Dude. Yeah. Like, I think that's why my goal is, whenever I am speaking, whether it's on a podcast or to people in my life, random people in my life, online, I found that through me talking about shit that is embarrassing to me about myself, it kind of softens that trigger that we can experience if I call myself out, not in a bad way, if I'm just being so straightforward, because I know other people are experiencing the same thing, even if they don't even realize it. So
Yeah.
that is one of my mini missions, is just humble myself over and over again and talk about the shit that no one wants to talk about, call myself out, because I think it really does create this space where people feel like, huh, she's being really honest with herself about maybe stuff she could work on or do. Maybe I can do that too. It doesn't sound that bad. And
Hmm.
that goes back to changes, it ripples from within you. You're either getting influenced by your environment or you're influencing your environment. So,
Yeah.
and you just have to be willing to get a little uncomfortable, and that uncomfortable might become one of the coolest things ever, just to see like I've seen other people just, there's nothing more exciting to me than seeing other people let go of how anyone views them, and that is what triggered me to become whoever it is. I have no idea who it is, but whoever it is I am becoming, it's through seeing people in my environment that don't give a single fuck, and they're just being themselves,
Yep.
and they invite others to do the same. And now I'm going around being myself, inviting others to do the same, and then the next person, and that's how this shit spreads.
Yeah, it's that ripple effect. And like one thing I also want to touch on is like what I really realized during this, healing journey is that finding yourself like isn't about finding yourself, like it's about letting go of all of the parts that you are not. Like there's no destined, like there is no you that there is defined. It's
Yep.
about like what are you right now, what are you actually not right now, like of all of those things. And like in that process, like you do find yourself in a way, but like it's just a different way of like looking at it and thinking about it. Like I'm not
Yeah.
trying to find this version of Cam that I love and that has a great job and does the things that he wants to do and travels and all this shit. Like it's just about understanding that like I'm not any of these things that I think I am, and like that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think the people that do like immediately seem happy and like genuine and authentic, that find themselves like at a young age, like that's a fluke. Like that is statistically improbable. Like for you to just know immediately what you want to do at a young age, that's really, really
It
hard. Like you
pisses you off
have
a
to,
little bit, right?
yeah. like you have to try a bunch of shit to figure out what you don't like before you just find what you do like. If you find something and you're like, damn, I love this, like holy shit, good for you. But like
Yeah.
most of the time, there's so many things that you could do. You're gonna dislike probably 99% of them.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point about how you do kind of find yourself through life, but as soon as you try to label it, then it fucks you up. Then it's no longer
So
finding
now you're in a
yourself. It's
box.
yep, exactly, and that's why I love how I've thought so many times that I figured it out. This is it. This is who I am. Oh, Paige, you have so much to learn, and I'm sure
Nope.
I'm sure there will be many more moments in the future where, because sometimes you put yourself in a box and you do not realize. You have no clue. You think you've unlocked the box and you're out, but really you've just created a bigger box. And then you
Mm-hmm.
then you come across an opinion or a belief that triggers you and you go, "Ah, oh shit. What is causing this?" And that's why I do speak on, obviously there's some really messed up things that people go through, and I can only speak through my experience. So this isn't to say that I know all. I'm saying I know at least me in a way of understanding that it's the hard scenarios that I go through that actually are the ones that allow me to transform and question myself. If they weren't there, if I didn't have uncomfortable conversations and uncomfortable situations with people that I didn't know, or friendships or family members, or just shit in my life that did not go as planned, I would not be the person that I am in each moment. And there's always something to be learned, even in a situation that looks hopeless. And sometimes maybe what you need to learn is to just allow yourself to feel hopeless for a little bit, because by doing that, you're able to move through it.
Yes. That's beautiful. That's what I want to end on right there, is just like allow yourself to just feel whatever it is the fuck you're feeling. Like again, back to I think what I said at the way beginning, like that's what I think the human experience is. It's just completely surrendering to the truth of a situation, like accepting exactly what is. Don't label shit as good or bad. And then also just understand that like everybody else is fucking human too. Like we're all going through the exact same shit. Literally all of us. Like we have the same brain. Like we are from the same source, creator, God, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Like we are actually wired pretty much the same. So like we are all connected and yet having like this like singular individual experience. And it's a mind fuck and it's awesome.
Dude, yes. That is literally, if I were to say there's one thing that has brought me peace, it is that. Knowing that every single person I look at, whether I'm driving in my car and there's all these people in their own little cars, I'm like, they're all in their own little world. Like, this life is fucking us all up. It's not just me, you know? And there is such, oh, there's just such peace in that for me. And I know life's not always going to be easy. I know it's going to get hard, but that's also just a part of the process. And it's never going to be sunshine and rainbows. It's never going to be that. I'm going to experience it, and then I might experience some dark stuff. Good stuff, dark stuff. Not even good stuff. Positive, whatever you want to call it. You know, nothing's good or bad. Yeah.
Just like it's just different.
Yeah, it's just like the river. We're just flowing down the river, might hit a rock, you know, you might end up in a side puddle and get stagnant. I think I heard Ray from Dualistic Unity, I don't know if you watch them, say that. He was like, yeah, sometimes you end up in this puddle and it just gets stagnant and murky, and then some big wave comes in and you finally get knocked out. Like, it's just also being willing to create these little stories and analogies for yourself to understand life and yourself better, because I think as humans we do live through stories and we can utilize that to our advantage, actually, instead of letting it control us.
Yeah. And I know I said I was done, but I guess I lied. But like also one of the biggest things too that brings me a lot of peace is just understanding like there's nothing in life that is that serious. Like actually there is not one single thing that is as serious as we probably make it out to be. Like we're all born and we're all going to die one day. We are all going to die. That is an absolute fact in life. There's nothing we can do to avoid that. And like, I think accepting death too. And like, I think we need to talk about death more often as just a society. Cause like, we just don't talk about it at all. But like, that's the one thing literally all of us are going to do at one time. Like as far as a shared experience that we're going to have, that's it. But just like, again, things are never really that serious, and just understanding that like, if things are not that serious, I don't have to like react in these ways. And like, I don't have to have all these opinions, and like, I don't have to let things get me down, and I don't have to suffer and all that, because like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And I used to take that in like a really nihilistic direction. Whereas now it's the opposite. Like I take that in like the, oh my God, nothing matters. Like that's so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And we create meaning. We can create the meaning through things, and it doesn't make it the truth, but you have this ability to create these stories within your lives. And as long as you're not fully grasping on and attaching yourself to them, you can have a lot of fun with life, and you know, view the dreamlike nature that kind of exists within it. And we'll not even get it. We'll have to do the death topic in another podcast, because I could go on about that for like an hour. But so I'm not even going to touch on that. But yeah, I just think that, you know, you got to sit back, watch the shit show unfold, and be a part of it. You know, that's how you fully experience life. Like you said, if this is gonna end, you know, to
take it all
hypothetically end, then you might as well just explore the hell out of life.
I could go down that topic too, that I saw you were getting at there, but I'll have to have you on another time. We'll have to talk about it. But thank you so much, Paige, for coming on. This was fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, this was great. I needed this.
Thanks everybody for tuning in and listening to this episode. As I mentioned earlier, if you enjoyed this, please share it with a friend, and please also like, follow, share, subscribe, wherever the fuck you're at. And then also make sure that you're following me on Instagram as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to just reach out to me with literally anything. I love engaging with you guys and talking with people that listen to the show. So yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.